What's up, guys? Welcome back to Country Bunkers Trains. We got somewhat of a product slash tech tip type video today. This is one I've been meaning to do for quite a while, and I'm finally getting around to doing it. Today we're going to be talking about good old vinyl grass mat. Does this stuff still have a place in the model train hobby today? Is it still a worthwhile product to use? This stuff does seem to be quite a bit of a controversial type product, but honestly, that's really not saying much. Everything in the model train hobby seems to be controversial these days. No matter what you use and what you prefer, seems to trigger and set somebody else off, and they got to tell you how their way of doing things is better. But anyway, I digress. This stuff does seem to be that type of product. People either really love it or really hate it. So let's jump right into it. Throughout the years, people have used a huge array of different products to cover their tabletop or bench work. I've seen people use many different various styles of household carpeting, the juke padding that goes underneath the carpeting just by itself to silence or quiet the trains running, different vinyls and paints, so on and so forth. However, throughout the years also, a select few seem to be selected as kind of the mainstream or the in thing to do with your layout. If we go back to the early years, one of the first preferred standardized, if you will, methods of adding ground cover to your layout was simply using paint. Folks would go down to the hardware store, pick up some green paint, and slather it on their tabletops. Along with the green for grass, they'd pick up some other colors to mimic some other ground cover and features for the layout. Things such as roadbed under the tracks, streets, and walkways. They'd even pick up some blue to give some water effects. Around the same time, another preferred method came out, and this one seemed to hold on and last quite a bit longer than the painting did, and that is the good old faux or fake grass carpeting or grass rug. Me, myself, personally, I love this stuff. I think this stuff just goes hand in hand so well with these old standard gauge and post-war trains. It's like peanut butter and jelly. There's nothing better. One day I'd love to build a standard gauge layout, and I'd love to use this stuff. Even if I do another post-war layout in the future, this is the stuff that I would prefer to use. Because like I say, it just goes so well with the trains from this era. Now, I did do some searching and digging around for info on the vinyl grass mat that we're talking about today, but unfortunately, I really couldn't come up with much info. Maybe one of you guys can fill us in the comments below. But from best I can tell, it seems like the vinyl grass mat entered the picture or the hobby back in the middle or in the midst of the post-war period. It came out around then, and if I had to guess, this stuff was probably made predominantly for the HO scale guys. The HO scale guys have always been going after more of a realistic, prototypical approach, and that good old grass carpeting simply would not fit the bill there. Not very realistic looking. On top of that, I'm sure the HO trains really would not run well on that thick grass carpet. It was probably not very supportive, and you had a lot of derailments with the HO trains. So those guys probably had no need or desire to use that, hence this vinyl mat which came to be. Regardless, though, the vinyl grass mat entered the scene and quickly became the main and predominant way to add grass and or ground cover to any layout of any size throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s. It was very easy to add to your layout. The instructions would have you glue this vinyl mat, the bottom side, to the top of your table, and you could trim the excess off of the edges. Quick spoiler here, do not glue this to your layout. We'll discuss that later. Now, back in the 1990s, here in the O-gauge world, we had a big wave or a big change happen. This was when the manufacturers first started offering the first big wave of scale size and prototypical engines and equipment. People absolutely loved and adored them, even here still today in 2025. People were going bananas over these new scale engines and wanted to have a layout or a terrain on their layout that would match and look as good as the new engines that they were picking up. The old standard vinyl grass mat simply just wasn't cutting it by itself, and people wanted a change. Well, thankfully, over the years, a bunch of other products have become available and readily known and seen even here in O-scale world, especially nowadays. But introductions of flocking material, like these Woodland Scenics flocking materials we see here, became more and more mainstream, and these became the preferred method for building your layout. These layouts are what we now call high rail layouts. They still retain, obviously, 3-rail O-gauge track. However, the scenery and layout is built to be of scale, size, and proportions, and give off a much more realistic appearance for these trains to run through. Now, even though I myself am currently building one of these newer high-railed styled layouts, and I'm absolutely loving it, I still have quite a soft spot for the old vinyl grass mat. I even find myself sometimes pondering if maybe we should have started out with the grass mat on our new layout instead of the route that we went. But I still can't help but wonder, why do some people have so much hatred for this vinyl grass mat? I understand some of it, but a lot of it I do not understand. Now, I do get or understand it for these hardcore modelists and or hobbyists who build the open grid benchwork style of layout. These are layouts that have an open framework underneath with supports going up to little strips of plywood that have been cut just to the size of the track. You get the track all installed on this grid system, and once that's accomplished, you build your terrain, your mountains, and everything up to the track rather than starting from a flat surface. Makes sense here. These guys can't use that vinyl grass mat as it simply would not work. One of the main complaints I hear on this stuff is something we touched base on earlier, and that is its looks or appearance. Some folks say it simply does not look good enough. Well, guys, you got to remember, not everybody is out to build necessarily a very super detailed layout or a high rail layout or anything like that. Some folks are beyond ecstatic or beyond happy to just have a very basic table or tabletop to set up a couple loops and run and enjoy their trains. That's where they get their fun, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Some folks just want to see their trains running. They're not worried about scenery, building, so on and so forth. And another caveat to this, I would say, some people still love to build post-war inspired or post-war styled layouts even here today, and this stuff is a perfect fit for that. Like I say, it did come out in the post-war time, or at least was available, and a lot of people used it back then. Hell, this layout we're looking here right now, if you remember, if you've been with me long enough, this used to be a post-war layout, and that's exactly where this grass mat has been placed this entire time. Obviously, it's getting changed up, but that also explains why it's quite dirty and greasy and needs to be doctored up. It's been here for quite a while, now serving on this newer styled layout as well as an older post-war styled layout. This next one kind of fits in with the first complaint I always hear, again on the looks, but people used to say, well, Zach, skip this grass mat, don't even bother with it, just paint the tabletop and go straight into the flocking material, kind of like what we're doing over here on the other layout. Well, guys, you don't have to do that. Some people, again, don't want to paint their layout, so this offers a great way to get out of having to apply paint to your layout, just laying this mat on top and calling it a day. But on top of that, also, you can glue to this stuff, right? I mean, you see all of this that's built on top of the grass mat, right? Everything here on this layout is glued in place, just like on the other layout. All the ground cover, dirts, scenery, so on and so forth. It's all glued right to that grass mat, just as it is over on the other layout, which is bare and painted. Again, no reason not to use it, which also leads into another complaint of people complaining about the price. I will say this is a little bit more pricier than if you are just going to apply paint to your tabletop. But again, it's all for what you're looking to get out of it and what you're going for. If you don't want to paint, like I say, this is a very easy and effective way to give you somewhat of a natural grass look to your layout without having to paint and go through all the troubles applying all this other product. And this brings me to my favorite part or favorite use of this vinyl grass mat. And I'm willing to bet it's not what you're thinking. If you're like me, and I know a lot of you are, and if you've been following along with me here on the channel for quite a while, I'm sure you know I love building O-gauge layouts. I mean, hell, here on the channel, I think we've built at least 6 now. I have a very bad habit of building a layout, enjoying it for a couple of years, and then tearing it down. And that's where this vinyl grass mat really, really shines, in my opinion. You might remember I mentioned earlier the standard way to apply this stuff to your layout is to glue it, and I said do not do that. And I still stand on that. No, do not glue it. Me, myself, I use carpet tacks and tack it to the table to hold it in place. Do not glue it. But yes, when I'm ready to take this layout down, once I get my buildings and the stuff that I'm going to keep off of the layout, I just remove these carpet tacks and I peel the whole vinyl mat up, and that leaves us with clean, usable wood underneath ready to go for the new layout. You can't beat it, man. Sure, you're spending a couple bucks extra at the start to lay this vinyl grass mat, but you're saving a bunch of money in wood when it comes time to build the next layout. In my opinion, the mat pays for itself just having that ability, being able to lift this up and have that clean wood ready to go and usable for the next layout. Over here on our new layout, again, I absolutely love and adore it. I do plan on this being the last layout going here because we can't go any bigger. We have nowhere else to go. So this one, yes, this one isn't going anywhere. But if I ever did get a wild hair up my ass, there's going to be no saving this wood, at least in my opinion. We could try. It does have, obviously, a layer of paint underneath, but it's going to be a huge pain in the rear trying to scrape all this ground cover and stuff off. No, I wouldn't go through it. At that point, just toss or burn the wood, and we'd have to start out with all new wood. But yeah, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't be discouraged from using the vinyl grass mat just because somebody says, oh, it's not good enough to use, it's not pretty, so on, yada, yada, yada. As you can see, it's still a great looking product and a very useful product even here in the year 2025. Even if it's useful for something you didn't even think it would be useful for. But anyways, I do hope you enjoyed this video. Like I say, leave me a comment below on your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Anyways, guys, as always, until next time, my name is Zach, and this is Country Bunkers Trains. Y'all take care. I'll see you the next go-round.